his education had been limited. He was a 6th grade. He had just gone to 6th grade because in those days, if your parents passed away, you had to stop and you had to help the family. So I was always so proud of my dad because he started his own business. The business was so successful. He took care of me and my mom, and I must say in very grand style. That night, he was so happy. He was such a hard worker. And we passed him on the way to the graduation. He was just turning in to go home in his work clothes. So I'm thinking he's gonna miss my graduation. And as we were lining up, here he walks in and took his seat. That was the proudest day for me and for my parents, but especially my dad, because I was graduating from high school. That was a big deal for him. But graduation, compared to today, where thousands graduate, we had the 65 people, and it was an exciting time. And we knew that we were the last class to graduate. There would be no more Luther Jackson high school graduation after us.
Because then they desegregated.
They desegregated, and now Luther Jackson is an intermediate school, and it became that next school year. So those who came behind us had to integrate into the other schools.
Did you ever have any friends that were part of that integration?
I did.
What did they say about it? Did they?
They were miserable that year. They were in a place that they didn't feel welcome. The high school, the black high school, as I'm to understand, I didn't play football or basketball, but there were some guys who played basketball and football. Luther Jackson they were champions in their small arena. When they went on to the white schools, they weren't in the championships anymore. Some of them never got to play again. So can you imagine? It's like it's being torn away from your safe environment where you thrived, and now you're in an environment where you're not even wanted, you're not even recognized, you're not noticed. So that's some of the stories that I get back. So they got through it and they graduated, but some of them I meet today because every year we have a reunion. They have an alumni association, and they give scholarships to our children. And we see some of them that didn't graduate. They came the next year, and they tell those stories of how they just longed to be able to graduate.
To have what you all had.
Yes.
Sounds like it was a very special time.
It was a very special time.
So you attended First Baptist of Merrifield during this time period?
I did.
What was that like?
I attended First Baptist Church of Merrifield at that time. It was great. My dad became a member there. And so he would tell, he was having a wonderful time in Bible study, and he became a trustee there. And so, he dragged me to church, and I came kicking and screaming, but I spent 27 years there. So it was wonderful. I sang in the choirs, and I started a youth choir there, a little children's choir there. Spent a lot of good years there at First Baptist.
You started at the old church, right?
I did. I started at the old church, and they kept the old church there for a long time before they, you know that better than anybody, before they tore it down. But I started in the old church with the hard, long pews. And as a matter of fact, when I bought my first home, I bought one of those pews from them. I think they actually gave it to me, and painted it up and kept it. I wanted a piece of that history. As they were getting ready to tear it down, they gave some of those things away.
Do you ever remember, I know Reverend Parker was a minister there, do you ever remember him speaking in the pulpit about civil rights or activism or, how to get through?
I don't remember that at all. I think in those days they kept things, in my time, pretty religious. They didn't do a lot of speaking about these things, the politics. As time went on, politicians came in and they were a allowed to speak and, you know, talk about the different things that they were going to do for our community. And I think that goes on today, which I'm glad, because one of the things I was always taught to do was to vote, because many died for us to be able to vote. That's a right, and I take that very seriously. My dad instilled that.
Your dad did? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Did he, and I assume he and your mom voted?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. No.
Did they have any problems with voting?
Not that I ever heard. I never heard that they did. But that's a right that they took very seriously and instilled it in me.
Were your parents or you ever involved in any protest or activism or anything like that?
No, I never remember that. Not at all.
Did you or your parents or relatives go to the March on Washington?
I did not. As a matter of fact, my mother and father did not go. My brother went, and I babysat while they went, so I watched it on TV.
So what did your brother say about it?
Oh, it was awesome. He wasn't very close to Martin Luther King. There were thousands of people there. But he said the day is a day you can never really explain fully, and you can never forget. You would never forget it. And I watched it on TV, and I tell you, I wasn't there, but it's a day that you'll never forget. And you can't explain it, but you'll never forget it. It was an awesome day.
Did people talk about it days and weeks afterwards?
Weeks and years after. That it was a peaceable march. And I don't know if before that there had ever been that many black people in one place in an organized manner. It was an awesome sight to see, Marion. It was beautiful. It was an awesome sight to see. And to hear Martin Luther King, he was just an excellent speaker. Something like we had never heard before.
Right. When you would go to restaurants or things of that nature, accommodations, how were you treated around this area? Where it was segregated, so.
It was segregated, so there weren't many we could go to. We knew the ones that we could go to, but there was always a place you had to sit. There was a place you had to sit on the buses. You had to sit in the back of the buses. And there were places you had to sit in a restaurant that you could go to. There were places you had to sit in a theater when you went. Now, when you went to Washington, D.C., that was a little bit different. There were theaters mostly for blacks that we went to. There were just special places that you sat. And, you know, we didn't go out very often. My family didn't.
So this was a question I know that you had brought up when you visited with the congressman. How did that make you feel? Was there anger? Was there not?
Not for me. It wasn't anger. I think my parents, and I've talked to others who experienced the same. I think my parents made my life so wonderful. They made everything a wonderful experience. So we didn't harbor anger or anything like that. You know, and they were, in the next generation, they were older. So you become accustomed to where you can go, where you can't go, and that's what you accept. That's what you accepted in those days.
You kind of know your place.
You know your place, and that's where we existed. That's where you were.
Do you think some of that was because your mom and dad buffered you from?
I think now, looking back, I know that they buffered me from a lot of it. I know that they did, definitely.
When you were on those buses, were any of the bus drivers mean or?
I don't remember them being mean. I don't remember that at all. So I just know, you got on the bus, you paid your money, you went back to your seat and you sat down. And you got off where you were getting off, but I never remember that.
Do you remember the baseball teams in Merrifield?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't.
Do you remember going to the Oddfellows Hall for anything? Or?
No, I don't. We went to, I got older, we went to dance halls further up the country. So.
Now, were they segregated dance halls?
No.
Really?
No, they were ours. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cross Creek.
No.
Yeah, that was a popular one. one.
Okay.
We went to, had no business there, we had to sneak there, but yeah.
And you never had any problems going?
Never had
Okay.
any problems there.
Just had a good time.
We just had a good time.
So what, did you ever go to the beach? What beaches did you go to?
We went there were two beaches, and they were called Sparrows Beach and Cars Beach, and those were the beaches for the black people to go to.
Can you remember the first integrated beach you went to?
Yes, I can actually. It was Bethany Beach. Because after there was no more cars, see, in those days, Cars Beach and Sparrows Beach, they weren't like the beaches you go to today. They were more, they would have shows there at the beach. So they would have these pavilions, and they would sell drinks, and they would have shows, and you could dance, and then you could go out to the beach. So those were great times. They don't have those kind of beaches anymore. But the first, so we stopped going to the beach after that. So the first beach that I ever went to that was integrated was Bethany Beach in Delaware.
And what year was that?
Oh man, I don't remember. My daughter was, that was probably in the early 70s that I went to Bethany Beach, because my oldest daughter was born in youngest was born in 76, and I remember taking her there as a baby. So I had probably gone a couple of years before that, so maybe middle 70s.
So did you have any problems going to an integrated beach?
No, we never had any trouble there.
Yeah.
But it was years later, after they banned the other two beaches, after they did away with those beaches, you just didn't go to the beach. So it was years later that we